Altcoin season just started, and this chart confirms it. With Bitcoin dominance dropping by 2% over the past 24 hours, altcoin prices have started to explode everywhere, meaning that your crypto portfolio probably looks like this right now. But imagine what that same portfolio will look like when the Bitcoin dominance drops 40% like it did back in 2021. Things are literally just getting started right now, and we're about to move into the most explosive phase of the market. With Ethereum starting to pump against Bitcoin, it confirms that the path to altcoin season is still alive. And with the markets becoming increasingly predictable, I can tell you exactly what to expect over the next few days and weeks ahead. I'm going to do that in this video. I'm also going to talk about a game plan to avoid making the key mistakes that people make around now. I'm going to tell you whether or not you should be buying into altcoins or expecting a pullback. I'm going to tell you exactly which altcoins I would be buying into if I was still sidelined, and which ones I might be avoiding. Without further ado, if you want to know exactly what's going on and what we can expect to happen over the next few months ahead, hit the like button and let's get into today's video. Now guys, if you've been subscribed to the House of Crypto over the past few months, then the moves that we've seen in the past 24 hours won't come as any surprise to you, because I've been telling you over and over again that the Bitcoin price and altcoins ultimately are following very closely the global M2 money supply. What we've seen is the Bitcoin dominance pumping towards the upside, but I told you that with the bearish divergence we would expect that to break down eventually, and now we're seeing that happen. Things are going crazy. But I know you've been watching a lot of people out there telling you that this global M2 money supply is actually BS and it doesn't have any correlation to crypto at all. But I'm going to prove to you in this video exactly why the M2 money supply is literally the holy grail of what we should be following. I'm going to talk about the Bitcoin dominance. I'm going to talk about what we can expect to see in altcoins and when we can expect to see some pullbacks with some key indicators there. So make sure you stick around for it, because this is so important right now. Now this here is the global M2 money supply. For those of you who don't know what M2 is, effectively it means the amount of money available in the system. Lots of people have more money in their pockets, more money in their bank accounts, etc., which is closely linked to what happens in Bitcoin. And using this chart, which is the Bitcoin chart with the M2 money shift for Bitcoin with a 12-week delay, you just have to click on the cog there, right 12, you can see it closely aligns with what we've seen in Bitcoin. And in fact, over the past few weeks, we've started to see Bitcoin perfectly bottom out around the bottom of this, now starting to move higher. And you will see that the M2 for today is roughly around where it was back in December of 2024. And from here on up, we can see that there is a lot more runway to see more explosive growth as the market continues. And I'm really happy to tell you that this is just the start, because not only does the M2 money supply go way beyond where it was back in December, but the fear and greed index right now is a little greedy, but not really that bad, meaning we've got a lot of space to run still ahead of us without having to see any significant pullbacks. So why have people like Ben Cowan and Jason Pizzino and Virtual Bacon and others been claiming that M2 doesn't really match Bitcoin and this is actually a fake model? Well, here's the reason. Now, I want to say I respect all of those people highly. They all have huge experience and they offer massive value in the markets, but I think they've missed something, which I'm going to explain clearly here. You see, this is the global M2 money supply, and they're saying that Bitcoin topped out in the last bull market on the 8th of November 2021, which is correct. And they say that the M2, the global M2, topped out on the 20th of June 2022. Which is also correct. And during that time, Bitcoin fell from around $69,000, 73%, which means that this wouldn't have been a reliable indicator back then. But here's what they missed. This is the M2, the global M2. But in fact, using this indicator and clicking on this cog, you can move to use different M2s. Now, if I select China M2, you'll see something very interesting. It goes up till when? The 27th of June, very close to around when the global M2 sold off. If I select the US, you'll see something very similar. It goes up until around the 20th of June. And then it tails off. But here's the key. This is the Japan M2, which you can see rounds off very nicely with this part here, puts that dip in, rallies up, but instead of going higher than it did previously, it puts in this lower high. And in fact, this second high here is in line almost exactly to the day with the top of the Bitcoin bull market here. So while the global M2 continued to pump higher because of China and the US, actually others started to pull out, and that's what weakened the price to a point that the momentum died and we saw a big sell-off. This is the Japan M2. Also, we can select the EU M2, and then if you click OK, you can see that the EU M2 also perfectly follows this nice rounded part here. It pumps higher, puts in a high, but then it puts in a lower high here. This lower high comes just a week or so after this top of the Bitcoin bull market, where Bitcoin was still worth over $60,000. So yes, looking at the global M2 wasn't necessarily the best predictor of the top of the bull market, but looking at the individuals starting to lose momentum is exactly why the bull market ended, and exactly why this indicator is the holy grail of following where Bitcoin prices go. Now, obviously, it tells us where Bitcoin prices go, not necessarily where altcoin prices go, and that's where the Bitcoin dominance has been key. Now, if you saw my video a few weeks back, I told you that the Bitcoin dominance was doing something very similar to what it did back in December. Back in December, we saw this happen to Bitcoin dominance, and that sent the likes of Sui to all-time highs, Solana, XRP, Cardano to all-time highs. And right now, we're starting to see the very, very early stages of this, but I expect to see an altcoin season that looks very much like this. Things are about to go crazy. So what did we see here that we started to see again here? Well, it's all to do with the bearish divergence on the relative strength index. Now, I know this might be a little bit technical, or you haven't seen this before, but guys, I promise you, if you subscribe to my channel over the next few months ahead, it's all going to start to make perfect sense to you. It might not happen perfectly to the day, but we often get things very, very close, and people have been calling me out, calling me an idiot over the past few months, and obviously over the past few days, we've seen those people silently disappearing back away. They will be back again some point nearer the top of the bull market to tell me that I'm wrong, that the Bitcoin price is probably going to be coming down. But we'll see little Timmy again soon, so not to worry about him. Looking into the indicators, what do I want? Relative strength index. Now, relative strength index is a pretty interesting one. Now, the relative strength is basically the momentum versus the price. Okay, there's a mathematical equation to learn about that, but that's kind of boring. We don't need to focus too much on that. Just think about this as momentum. If you're running up a hill, you might start hard and fast and do pretty well, but eventually you're going to tire out. And eventually you're going to fall back down. This is what we see when the price of something rises and the momentum starts to shift. Now, what we could see before was the Bitcoin dominance was climbing and climbing, and eventually the relative strength started to sell off. This creates a bearish divergence. It means that the price is going higher and higher, but losing momentum. Eventually, it's going to fall back down. This is what we saw happen. This is what we then anticipated happening again. You can see that the price has been rallying and rallying and rallying, and what we could see again happen was this. Bitcoin dominance went higher and higher and higher. The Bitcoin relative strength went lower, starting to weaken. It did put in this little bit of a top here, and then guess what? The relative strength has just absolutely piled in. It's lost complete momentum, and now is indicating the very first kind of beginnings of a major altcoin season. And I know everyone's like, well, we needed rate cuts from the FOMC and all these other things. It was so obvious that we didn't, and I told you time and time again. Back in December, the quantitative tightening rates were far bigger. US was selling off something like $25 billion of assets on their balance sheet every month. Right now, it's dropped to around $5 billion. We can obviously go to at least the levels that we saw in December in the current conditions with the FOMC. What's causing the major acceleration in global M2, though, isn't coming out of the US. It's coming out of countries like China, who've been cutting rates. It's coming out of countries like the UK, who've been cutting rates and starting to print money. It's been coming out of the EU, who are printing money. And this is all shown in the USDT market cap, stablecoins, right? You can see it's pumping like crazy during periods of time where we're about to see expansion. We're seeing it happen again right now. Now, this isn't designed to like toot my own horn and tell you like that we got it right, okay? This is to show you that there are models under this that break through all the noise and BS and drama that actually show you that crypto is following a fairly structured move. So you can ignore all of the stuff that you see in the news and the drama because, yeah, maybe it has a little bit of a catalyst effect, but ultimately, crypto is following very closely this. And if you can understand it, you can start to predict what's likely to happen. Now, obviously, global M2 continues to rally higher. We will see Bitcoin continuing to rally higher. Once Bitcoin breaks beyond previous highs that it saw in December, you're going to see Bitcoin all over Fox News, BBC News, all sorts of global news channels. Normal people are going to be rushing into crypto and they're going to be buying once more. Things are going to get very exciting very quickly, and we're going to see the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index starting to go higher and higher and higher. Now, that's a bit of an indicator that eventually we might see a pullback. And this is something that you need to be cautious of. Knowing exactly to the hour, to the day when a pullback is going to come is a tricky game. It doesn't necessarily mean that you must take profits straight away. I still think we're very early because we're still here. This will reach above 90 before we need to consider possibly taking profits off the table. Now, another thing that you need to pay attention to and why we see pullbacks in bull markets is this. Now, a pullback in a bull market is going to be looking like this. Now, I know we've seen recently big, long, lengthy pullbacks that have left us all like very sad and whatever. But actually, because the M2 continues to rally now, we're going to see very short-term pullbacks occur. But these short-term pullbacks can be brutal. Okay, look at these ones in the Bitcoin price. Previously, you can see that Bitcoin rallied all the way up here to $38,000 in one day. It then fell back down to $33,000. You can see a lot of candles on the way up, showing huge volatility within crypto happening all the time. This is going to get more and more aggressive, and particularly in the altcoins. So if we understand why this happens, it's going to allow us to be very calm, and it's going to allow us not to fuck up. Okay, this is the funding rate heat map. Now, a lot of the moves that happen in crypto are happening because of what? People buying Bitcoin, yeah? But people buy Bitcoin on spot, and they also buy Bitcoin with leverage. Here's a problem. If lots of people buy Bitcoin with leverage, eventually the price gets a bit unstable. And it means if someone comes and makes a big sale, it can dip the price down very fast and it can hit stop losses, and then that can cascade down. That's basically what happened to Mantra OM, which caused it to dump 90% because they didn't actually have anyone buying it on spot. They were selling massive OTC deals and then using leverage positions to prop up the price so that when people eventually sold off, it dumped the price like crazy. If you're buying into OM Mantra right now, I wouldn't, because they've already been pretty shady and they're going to try and do something crazy like that again. So how do we know when everyone's going into leverage positions? Well, partly because everyone's going to be sharing with you how much money they've been making because they get greedy. Okay, but also if you go to coinglass.com and you look at the funding rate heat map, hover over funding rate, click on the heat map, and you can see this is pretty blue and green, which shows you that we have a lot of runway across the board. There's one coin here that you can see is starting to go into the orange funding rate. Now, funding rate is basically how much it costs to borrow money from the exchange to use a leverage position. When the funding rates are very high, it means that everybody is going long on positions, and it means that we are in a sketchy period of time. This is a coin here that's in orange, the only one. It's Fartcoin. So what can we expect from Fartcoin right now? It's been pumping up like crazy. And why is it doing it? It's because everyone's opening leverage long positions on Fartcoin. Guess what? When that happens, you start to see lots of these more aggressive pullbacks coming in. And we will eventually see probably aggressive pullbacks like this. It doesn't mean it can't go higher, but you can see these aggressive pullbacks. What does that teach us? It tells us that if you start to use big leverage, you get screwed. Even if the market continues going higher and higher and higher, you're going to see sudden days when it wicks back down, it wrecks you. So if you are using leverage, do it very carefully, okay? If you are wanting to know how to make leverage trades, etc., make sure you go and subscribe to my other channel, The School of Crypto. I'm going to be talking about trades. I'm going to be entering in on that slightly later on today. So if you're using leverage, you get a chance to get basically destroyed, okay? It comes from being over greedy. If ever you're over greedy and you try and make money too fast in crypto, you're going to get screwed. Guys, you can make like 5, 10x, maybe more if you choose the right altcoins over the next few months ahead. That should be good enough, okay? Trying to make bigger gains than that, you end up getting screwed. Remember, you can make lots of money in this bull market, sell somewhere near the top, and then amplify your gains in the next bull market. Play the long game, subscribe to the House of Crypto, that's how you're going to win big over time. Okay, so when this all looks orange and whatever, then be cautious. A pullback is likely to happen at any time when this is happening, okay? So be very, very careful of this. But right now it's pretty blue and green. Gives you good chances for entries still. So, looking to my crypto portfolio right now, obviously having a pretty good day because we've been buying the dip over the last few months. Where would I be focusing my attention? Well, if I was to go out to like the week, to the month, it should be a little bit clearer where we should be looking. I know that the eye is drawn to the SUIs and the Virtuals protocols and the TARS AI and these altcoins that have been seeing some really decent upside. And if you've been missing out on these coins, it's because you're not subscribed. You should have been catching them when we caught them at the lows. But really, where would I direct my attention right now? If someone gave me some money today, looking at this, where would you buy? If your answer is Quai Network, you're probably on the money. If your answer is TARS AI, give yourself a slap because it's the biggest green bubble. We don't buy the biggest green bubbles, we buy the biggest red ones. Sometimes, most of the time. Okay? What we're seeing right now, remember, is the path to altcoin season. We see the confidence returning to the market. Bitcoin goes up, ETH goes up. Large cap altcoins go up like SUI and a few other front runners. Don't buy the front runners if you are late to the party. There's lots of opportunity in coins that are still yet to see that growth. We're going to start to see smaller cap coins slowly catching up. This is My Lovely Planet. Been banging on about it for ages. It's now still down in and around this area. Look, just to back to those highs that we saw previously, 190%. This rally that took place last December was in 2 days, it went up 470%. Some of these small caps you can catch still at very good prices. But where do I see the biggest opportunities right now? And I'm going to talk about this in a video tomorrow, is in the coins that launched sometime in around December and saw a pretty painful time. Why? Because these were top class projects that just saw horrible price action. New people rallied into them. They didn't have enough existing community from back here. Guess what? Everybody sold when the market sold off. So Lingo, just an example, tanked all the way down here. It's now starting to see a little bit more buying back up. Okay, so if you missed the likes of SUI and whatever, this is where I would be creeping into the market. This, again, Quai Network. Look, Quai has been dying a horrible death, and then all of a sudden, in 2 days, it pumps up. I'm going to cover Quai in more detail tomorrow because it's one of the most unreal proof-of-work blockchain concepts out there. If you've been thinking about Casper being the best proof-of-work blockchain, Quai is head and shoulders above Casper. We know what happened to Casper back over the last few years, pumped like crazy. Quai, heavily undervalued. Most of the undervalued tokens I'm going to be talking about in tomorrow's video. If you're late, then don't worry about getting into Sui's and whatever. Sui will continue to go higher. I hold it, of course. But remember, you're going to see the biggest upside from the coins that are yet to pump. And guess what? With the Fear and Greed Index still sat here, a lot of people aren't even watching crypto. They probably haven't even realized we're back to where we are. Things are about to get crazy, okay? This is going to pump up like crazy. You can get opportunities into some of the smaller caps. And these smaller caps are the ones that will see the biggest growth eventually. We've just had the time over the past few weeks to make lots of money in Sui's, Solana's, and all the others, okay? A lot of coins will run together. If you're late to the party, imagine every coin to be like this. Sui, as you can see, goes down, like many did. It then recovers, and then it's starting to recover more. This was phase 1, the recovery. Phase 2, early recovery. Phase 3, kind of getting up there. Phase 4, up to phase 5. Every coin has a very similar chart to this, but you just need to make sure that you're buying in towards 1 and 2 and not 3, 4, 5. Okay, so for example, if we were looking right now at Zig Chain, similar thing. But you can see the Zig Chain is down here. 1 is now in 2. Phase 3 is up here. Phase 4, you get the picture. If we were to look at Fartcoin, you can see that Fartcoin is in phase probably up towards like 4. Okay, don't get up into 4s or 5s, get into 1s. Okay, you can't go too far wrong. Now tomorrow I will be breaking down in more detail probably some of the stuff around this pattern and some of the most undervalued tokens out there. Don't just go and ape into them. Okay, I want to do some research and so you really understand why we're buying into certain coins when we're buying into them. Also, by understanding what I've talked about in here and really going into the depths of the M2 and everything else, it's going to allow you to ignore all the noise. Allow you to ignore when people at the end of this bull market are telling you that Bitcoin's different this time and it's going to go much bigger and whatever. It's not. It's the same thing. Heard it all before. This is going to rise until M2 starts to drip towards the downside. Whenever that happens, we want to start to be able to take some profit out of this market. If you want to keep holding on to Bitcoin because you believe in the system or whatever, then for sure, do that. But it will come down 40, 50%, probably more, once we get into the bear market, as per usual, without fail. So understand there's a system here. Don't get emotional. Don't come back to me and tell me I'm an idiot when I tell you to sort of maybe think about getting out the market somewhere near the top. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video and you got through this far, thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button, leave a comment down below, just helps support me and the channel and the growth that we see over the past few years and the growth that we've been having. Also, if you're wanting to buy different crypto coins and you're not really sure where to buy them, then I highly recommend using either Bitunix here or WEEX, because both of these exchanges are non-KYC. They have some of the lowest fees available across crypto. You can buy a huge range of smaller cap altcoins that aren't necessarily available on the likes of Binance. If you want to be able to make some of the biggest gains and be able to buy into the right coins at the right time, then make sure you're set up with these two exchanges. Also, if you use my link down below, you're going to get a significant bonus for signing up and depositing funds. Because I've been working with these exchanges longer than anyone else, I have a pretty solid agreement with them and I'm able to give you a discount far better than anyone else out there is. So make sure you sign up through those links down below. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for supporting me and having faith in me over the past few months. It's been difficult, we beat little Timmy in the end. Here we are, things are about to get good. Have a great weekend and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.